Singer Bonnie Tyler has died. She topped the charts with songs like Total Eclipse of the Heart and Holding Out for a Hero. Her family posted on Facebook that she died in a hospital in Portugal after being treated for an illness, but didn't say what she was sick with. She was 75 years old.
When Bonnie Tyler died at 75, millions mourned one of music's most unforgettable voices. But while tributes poured in from around the world, one person said almost nothing. Her husband of 53 years, Robert Sullivan, the man who knew Bonnie long before the fame, the hit records, and the sold-out arenas. And when he finally broke his silence, his words revealed a side of Bonnie Tyler that the public had rarely seen. What did Robert Sullivan finally reveal about the woman he loved for more than 5 decades? And what did his quiet tribute tell the world about Bonnie Tyler's life away from the spotlight? Join us as we uncover the remarkable story behind Bonnie Tyler's final chapter. The love story nobody saw coming. It was 1970. Bonnie Tyler, whose real name is Gaynor Hopkins, was doing what she did every night, singing in nightclubs around Swansea, Wales. She was not famous yet. She was just a girl from a Welsh coal miner's family, belting out covers in venues that smelled like cigarette smoke and cheap beer, trying to make something happen with a voice that everyone in the room could feel in their chest. Robert Sullivan was working as a club manager. He was the guy running the place where she was performing. He was not a record executive or someone who could make her famous. Just a man with a job who happened to hear a woman sing and could not stop thinking about it afterward. Bonnie said it herself in an interview with The Times just months before her death. "I met my husband when I started singing in nightclubs in Swansea because he was a club manager." And then she said the line that explains everything about why the marriage worked. "I think the secret to our success is that we met before I was famous." That right there is the whole thing. He did not fall in love with Bonnie Tyler the star. He fell in love with Gaynor Hopkins from Skewen, who had a voice like nothing he had ever heard, and who was working for it rather than waiting for it to happen to her. By the time Total Eclipse of the Heart turned her into a household name in 1983, they had already been together for 13 years. The fame arrived in the middle of a love story that had already established its own foundation. They dated for 4 years before getting married on July 4th, 1973. She was 22, and he was just a year older than her. She said in 2012 that she married her first serious boyfriend. She also said that she was still very much in love with him, and he with me. "We never fall out. He is very easy on the eye, which helps." Name another couple in show business with that track record. It might be almost impossible to. And the reason they could say that is connected directly to who Robert Sullivan was, outside of being Bonnie Tyler's husband. He had his own whole story going on simultaneously, and it is a story that most people have absolutely no idea about. So who exactly was Robert Sullivan before he became one half of one of music's most quietly iconic love stories? The man nobody talked about. Here is the part that always catches people off guard. Robert Sullivan is not just a celebrity spouse who made a good investment by marrying the right woman. He is a former Olympic athlete, an actual, literal Olympian. Robert competed for Great Britain in judo's half-middleweight division at the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich. He placed 18th overall, the same year he won a silver medal at the European Team Championships in the Netherlands. While Bonnie was singing in nightclubs in Wales, her boyfriend was competing in the most prestigious sporting event on the planet. And somehow this detail has been almost completely absent from every piece of press the couple ever received. Because once you are married to someone as famous as Bonnie Tyler, Your own achievements tend to get swallowed by their orbit. After retiring from competitive judo, Robert moved into real estate and eventually worked as a property developer. He and Bonnie built a joint portfolio that included homes in Berkshire and London, a farm in New Zealand, and a residence in Albufeira, in Portugal's Algarve region. By 2023, Bonnie was describing Robert to journalists as very good at investing in property. The couple had bought a farm in New Zealand, 65 horse stables, and 22 properties in Berkshire, England. Their combined net worth at the time of her death was reported to be around $40 million. There is also one more detail about Robert Sullivan that throws the most interesting curveball into this entire story. Something about his family that connects him to another very famous Welsh face in entertainment. So what is that connection and why does it matter? The Catherine Zeta-Jones connection. Nobody mentions. Robert has a family connection to the entertainment industry that most coverage of Bonnie Tyler never mentions. He is a first cousin, once removed, of actor Catherine Zeta-Jones through his relation to her father. Zeta-Jones referenced the connection publicly in 2017, calling Tyler part of her extended family. When Bonnie died on July 8, 2026, Catherine Zeta-Jones posted on Instagram that her heart was broken with the news that their dearest Bonnie Tyler had passed away. That post from Zeta-Jones captured something about what Bonnie Tyler was to people who knew her as a person rather than as a performer. She was my dearest Bonnie. Not the legend, not the star, not the woman with the voice, just Bonnie. The woman who slept in until 11:30 when she was home in Swansea and had her husband bring her cups of tea in bed. The woman who went for lunch with friends and family and had her nails done and said she could never leave Wales because her big family was there. That version of Bonnie Tyler, the one who existed between tours and recordings and Eurovision appearances, is the one that Robert Sullivan knew completely. She described her home life in a January 2025 interview with The Times. "When I'm not touring, I'm hopeless in the mornings and sleep in until about 11:30 a.m. My husband brings me cups of tea. I still live in Swansea in Mumbles, overlooking the sea. I might get my hair and nails done there in the morning, then go for lunch with friends and family. I have a big family in Wales, so I couldn't ever leave." For 53 years, Robert Sullivan was the person who had always been there for her and who stayed by her bedside in a Portuguese hospital when the doctors were still saying she was going to be fine. And then on July 8, 2026, she was not fine anymore. So what happened in Portugal, and how did the story of Bonnie Tyler's final months unfold in a way that left the whole world shocked, even when the ending finally came? The months nobody will forget. In early May 2026, Bonnie was hospitalized in Faro, Portugal, after a perforated intestine required emergency surgery. The couple owned property in Albufeira, in the Algarve region, which is why she was in Portugal when the medical emergency occurred. A perforated intestine is exactly as serious as it sounds, requiring immediate and major surgery with a long and difficult recovery. After the surgery, she was placed in a medically induced coma to aid her recovery. Her team confirmed this publicly and asked for privacy. Then in June, a statement on her official website said she was no longer in the coma, but remained very unwell and in intensive care in a hospital in Portugal. Her doctors were said to be confident that she would make a good recovery, but that it was going to take time. Everyone believed it. Bonnie Tyler had survived so much in her career. She had been preparing to celebrate the 50th anniversary of her breakthrough single Lost in France, with a full European tour. Shows booked in the UK, Malta, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, and Romania. She had released a collaboration with David Guetta and Hypaton called Together in July 2025. She released Only Love in March 2026. She debuted One World, One Home in April 2026. She was not winding down. She was still fully going. On July 9th, 2026, the statement that nobody wanted to read appeared on her official website. Bonnie's family and team are heartbroken to announce that Bonnie unexpectedly passed away last night in hospital in Portugal as a result of the illness that she was being treated for. We will issue a further statement shortly, but for now ask for privacy to deal with this tragedy. They had thought she was getting better. The doctors had said she was getting better. And then she was gone. She was 75 years old. And Robert Sullivan was left in a hospital in Portugal with a silence that the whole world was now waiting for him to fill. What did the tributes look like? And what did the people around Bonnie say in the days that followed? What people actually said? The family's statement asked for privacy, and Robert Sullivan gave them exactly that. In the days immediately following Bonnie's death, there was no solo interview from her husband, no statement in his own name, no appearance on a talk show. He stayed in the background in the same way he had always stayed in the background, letting the music and the people who loved her do the talking. The tributes that came in were immediate and genuine. A spokesman for British Prime Minister Keir Starmer called her one of Britain's greatest recording artists. The Secretary of State for Wales called her a Welsh music icon. Judd Lander, her representative, said, "Bonnie was unique. She was a one-off, great sense of humor, a stunning voice, and great stage presence. The world has lost one hell of a great talent." An official statement from Downing Street described her as an iconic figure who leaves behind a catalog of music which continues to touch lives, flood dance floors, and fill karaoke booths. Fill karaoke booths. That is the most Bonnie Tyler tribute possible, because Total Eclipse of the Heart is arguably the most sung karaoke song in the history of karaoke. It is the song that turns quiet people loud and shy, people brave and tired people awake. She gave ordinary people a song that felt bigger than any ordinary voice could contain, and somehow made them feel like they could contain it anyway. Kevin Bacon, whose film Footloose featured Holding Out for a Hero, and who was born on July 8th, paid tribute to Tyler after learning she had died on his birthday. Catherine Zeta-Jones posted on Instagram that her heart was broken. The Footloose connection brought out a whole wave of people who had grown up with Bonnie Tyler's voice as the literal soundtrack to the most exciting moments of their teenage lives. And through all of these tributes, through all of this public outpouring of grief and love, Robert Sullivan stayed quiet. He had been at her bedside in Portugal. He had been the person in that hospital room when the doctors said what they said. He was doing what he had been doing for 53 years, being there, quietly and completely, without needing anyone to notice. But what he has revealed through the things Bonnie herself said in her final years paints the fullest picture of what their marriage actually was. And it starts with the one great sadness inside one of music's greatest love stories. So what was that sadness? The baby they never had, and the grief they carried together. Throughout their decades-long marriage, Bonnie and Robert did not have children. When Bonnie spoke about this in 2012 with The Guardian, she was honest about how it happened and what it cost her. She said, "What happened was that when we got married, we said we'd wait 7 years before starting our own. But by that time, my career was massive. We put it off and put it off until I was 39 and he was 41. I suddenly felt maternal then, so it just felt the right time. I got pregnant very quickly, but after 2.5 months, I miscarried, which was bloody awful at the time. We tried again, but after 2 years, nothing had happened, so we just thought it wasn't meant to be." She said in her later years that she had 5 godchildren, 16 nieces and nephews, and 12 great-nieces and nephews, so there was no shortage of children in her life. She described her home life in January 2025. "I still live in Swansea and Mumbles, overlooking the sea. My husband brings me cups of tea. I have a big family in Wales, so I couldn't ever leave." Since her death, Robert Sullivan has not given a solo interview. The family's statement described him as heartbroken. That is the perfect word for what happens when the person who has been the other half of everything you do is suddenly not there anymore. Robert was 76 years old at the time of her death. He had been with Bonnie since she was 19 and he was 20. He had watched her go from a nightclub singer in Swansea to an international legend. He had watched her voice get operated on and come back stronger. He had watched her compete in Eurovision in 2013. He had watched her keep recording and touring and releasing music right up until the moment she could not anymore. The thing about 53 years is that the grief is not just for the person. It is for the version of yourself that only existed in relation to them. Robert Sullivan does not have a public persona to fall back on. He has the properties and the judo medals, and the memory of what it was like to bring cups of tea to a woman who changed the world with her voice, and who called him very easy on the eye after nearly 4 decades of marriage. What he has said in the things communicated through the family and through what Bonnie herself said about him in the final years of her life is everything about how the marriage worked. The story of Bonnie Tyler doesn't end with her marriage or even with her passing. It lives on in the music that carried her voice around the world for nearly 5 decades. And, remarkably, in a final recording, she never knew would be her last. The music that outlasts everything and what comes next. Bonnie Tyler's final song, One World, One Home, was released on April 24, 2026, less than 3 months before her death. She could not have known it would be her last. None of them could have. She was preparing for a European tour. She had shows booked in the UK, Malta, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, and Romania. Total Eclipse of the Heart has sold over 13 million copies worldwide. It went to #1 in the United Kingdom and the United States simultaneously in 1983. It's a Heartache from 1977 reached #4 in the UK and #3 on the US Billboard Hot 100. The voice that she got by accident from surgery on vocal nodules in 1977 that permanently changed her natural tone into the raspy, powerful instrument that became her calling card, turned out to be the most distinctive thing about her. The thing that was supposed to be a medical problem became the thing that made her unforgettable. She was still releasing music at 75. She had collaborated with David Guetta and Hypaton in July 2025, with Together, which reached #4 on the French airplay chart. She released Only Love in March 2026 and premiered it live at the O2 Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. She was not winding down. She was still fully going. The world is holding out for a tribute. Robert Sullivan is holding on to something the world cannot access, which is the actual private knowledge of who Bonnie Tyler was when she was just Gaynor Hopkins from Skewen sleeping in until 11:30 in a house overlooking the sea in Mumbles. That is what he has. That is what his silence is protecting. And that is the most loving thing he could possibly do for her. Do you think Bonnie Tyler and Robert Sullivan's marriage is one of the greatest love stories in music history? And which part of Bonnie Tyler's life surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.